ruin their lives and that will make us happy. That's what we should say when we send one to prison. If you know, to be honest, and as Nietzsche said, in the name of minimal honesty, don't send them to prison and go, that was the best thing for them. You know, you were spanked by your father maybe once. He just beat the hell out of you and you went, that hurt me worse than it did you. And you go, I guess. Reading the text of Nietzsche makes us suspicious of people who do things for our own good. It makes us suspicious of people who love us in a kind of abstract way, especially. So I didn't want you to think that I had sort of, in my previous lecture, become soft-hearted, so that's why we followed up the Nietzsche lectures. We don't want any conservatives saying, well, you're not tough-minded enough. So this is sort of a little bit more of the tough-minded part. Just a sort of Christian doctrine of loving everyone, Nietzsche says, does not work. Because love is meaningless without discrimination. In other words, in what way do I honor you to love you if I love everybody else too? See, there are many points like that in Nietzsche that I think are quite challenging and quite interesting. It is absolutely, for Nietzsche, duplicitous to go, I just love everyone. Well, you haven't met everyone. And some of them you're not going to like because they're acids. You're not going to like them. And if you did, the people you really loved ought to be irritated because you'd say, well, I thought you loved me. You love everybody? Well, big deal. I'll see you later. I mean, you bump into me again, you'll still love me, you know. It's like Will Rogers. I never met a man I didn't like. Well, he never met George Bush, you know. So Nietzsche is a wonderful, and all I can do is, because his argument is intricate and powerful, I'm just giving you suggestive bits of it today. But Nietzsche is one of the modern masters of suspicion, the reading of whose books, I think, warns us against some of our, as it were, not prejudices, because it's not fair to call something a prejudice that's so deeply seated. You know, that is so much a part of our civilization and culture. It's not really a prejudice, but it is an eye-opening experience to get, as it were, another look at it, a look at what might be beneath it. And so to get ready for my remarks on Nietzsche today, it was simply enough, as I say, to switch around the not enough. I mean, unfortunately, I had to read this stuff before, probably when I was too young. Let's switch around and hear Oral Roberts discuss how much he loved everybody out in TV land and that 10 big enemies were coming after all of them. Well, he didn't name any of them. It's not very helpful. I mean, if you knew who they were, you could call the cops or something, I guess. Those peace officers carry weapons. Like Patriot missiles. Peacekeepers. But to hear Oral and the various morning preachers, and of course in the case of Falwell, I think it's just outstanding, because Falwell always loved his enemies. And the duplicity in it is palpable. And I just think that someone would have to be incredibly naive not to feel it almost. Especially if you've seen him in debate with some leader of, for example, a homosexual leader. I love you. Just know that somewhere in there is the desire to inter everyone. More importantly, in the very texts that form the Christian tradition, like Thomas Aquinas, are these frightening moments that look marginal to the main tradition, but I don't think anyone's going to raise their hand and tell me St. Thomas Aquinas is a marginal figure in the history of Christianity. These blinding moments of clarity where we have these people say, the chief pleasure will be to see the torment of the damned. I mean, why will heaven be a lot of fun? Well, we'll be there a long time, and it'll be like a Clive Barker movie. All the people we didn't like will be being torn apart, you know, like in one of those Clive Barker films. And that will be a lot of fun. It'll be an ongoing splatter movie mixed with harp music. It'll be a real gig, a trip. It will be fun. Well, anyway, Nietzsche's discourse would teach us to be a little bit more honest about this, I think. And when we intend to punish or kill people, it would be nice to say we intend to punish or kill them. By nice, I mean not moral. We're in this moral universe where duplicity is built into being virtuous. Still, you see how I said earlier for the Greeks telling lies well was sort of openly acknowledged as something clever to do. But that duplicity is still built into the concept of virtue in a way. I mean, we can't really tell the truth even about wars, as you know. We can't really let it all hang out and say, well, you know, we started off just to invade Kuwait, get it back, but now we're really pissed. And we want to kill all those damn Arabs, every one of them, man, that damn Saddam, and any of those other people that are yelling and burning our flag too. Well, I've been out and around the country, and that's the attitude out there. It's not, it's funny, sort of the lower you go down the educational scale, the more honest it gets. It's kind of, that's sort of nice. At the university, we have a lot of professors who believe the same thing, who just won't say it that way. They believe it, they just won't say it. Instead, they'll do a sort of General Haig kind of discussion of it, the way Al Haig talks, sort of in State Department-ese, full of lots of ing words and coinages that are not found in the English language, that, you know, just cover over the real situation. When what Al Haig really wants to say is, I'm in charge, and the dark little people will die. That's the message. And it's right and good that they should die, because they will die so that everyone can be free in a new world order. And right on, let's go get them. Kick butt, drop bombs, they die, don't talk, kill. It's like a proposal for surrender. A proposal for surrender as follows. You surrender or we bomb you while you sit there, but of course if you get up to leave, we will bomb you while you're walking away. Is that a good policy? See, it's almost Nietzschean, isn't it? Surrender, but don't move. Of course, if you don't move, you won't have surrendered, so we'll have to bomb you. But if you move, we won't be sure you've surrendered, so we'll have to bomb you. So surrender, but we'll bomb you. It's kind of a policy designed to do what? Bomb people. They can go, don't, but it won't help, because they'll either have to be still or moving, or some condition in between. Again, it'd be better openly to say, now that we've got this thing going, we're all good Christians, we want to do the right thing, and we're all believers in good democracy, but for the moment, let's forget it. This is too much fun. Let's really hammer it. And let's prove that our version of the Peloponnesian War, the one that made the Greeks so confused about their values, in our culture, we had a war like that, confused us about our values. Vietnam, and it's kind of a background theme of the current war, of a philosophy of the present, to which I'm now connecting the discourse of Nietzsche loosely. A target might be to kill the guilt and the fear that were produced by that other troubling moment. Nothing would do that better than a clean kill with a huge majority vote. A quick, clean kill. What better basis on which to build a new world order than an order of barbarism? I mean, you know, than this massively quick and effective barbarism, which would accomplish what should be openly stated as a public goal of the war. Namely, to prove that the peace-love hippies were wrong and Rambo was right, and that is that in that earlier war, if only we would have just kept bombing and hit them with everything we had, those damn peaceniks and those newspaper guys and all those bleeding hearts wouldn't have lost the war for them. Well, if we can go in now and show that massive force continually applied will bring this country to its knees, it'll be a way to demonstrate that that could have been done before. That all those people that raised all that hell were even more wrong than they've already admitted. Good God, even more sold out than they're already sold. It's like the New World Order can't tolerate even a little, just a little bit of opposition. And that may be true of it. Because it is I don't know if it's Nietzsche's view, but it's mine, that systems of power connected to systems of value tend to spread and become total. In other words, they tend to want to fill up the total field of discourse within which we discuss the moral. This is well known about religions, it helps to account for religious wars. the principle of toleration is not built into people who have that kind of insight into the truth. That's why I did begin these lectures by discussing fallibilism, not as some deep philosophical principle, but as the following principle: that it's okay to have beliefs, but suspect your own belief. That it's important to believe some things passionately, but it's also important to have the wisdom to know that you could be dead wrong. So, using Nietzsche to bring up this critique of some of the values that have come out of the so-called Christian tradition, I realized that I could be wrong, Nietzsche could be wrong, but all these arguments and from him and the suggestions I've made during this hour are meant to suggest a kind of suspicion of that tradition. Now, Nietzsche does say what is one of the powerful motivations behind Christianity, which is, I've argued, is deeply connected to the current world system. One of its powerful motivations is it does speak to something that's very important, and human beings may, in fact, quite generally share it, and that's the need for love. Christianity is a sort of lyrical religion in that respect. It speaks of love. And it's hard not to know that it fudges the distinction between the earthly and the carnal kind. It fudges that distinction. I don't know how many of you have ever been to an evangelical meeting out in the country, but that's the night when all the men and women get dressed up in their best clothes and go and sing these rousing songs and sweat in their best perfume and sing "Love Lifted Me," and it's very difficult not to see Nietzsche's point that Christianity has always been a find for those who have repressed sexuality. It's quite a find. It always has been. So all I can do is suggest you read more Nietzsche. In a cynical time like this, it's hardly necessary. Most of you are probably already that cynical anyway. Maybe this was a waste of time. But I wanted to add to the economic and political conditions what might be called cultural conditions, of which religion remains an important one. And so the discussion of Nietzsche fits there. And also it fits because it's still a project for some and a quite serious one. So now that I've presented Nietzsche's rather cynical view, in the next one I'll discuss Kierkegaard's view. But the problem with this is that Christianity, as I already argued, in a modern society is already a very idiosyncratic project. Very idiosyncratic. I know that because I've been a faculty in residence and lived with students at a university and had them come in and complain, "My roommate's a real sky pilot," by which they mean he reads the Bible a lot and irritates them. And that's an easier way to get rid of a roommate than coming in and saying he's a Nazi. Because the Nazi will just put up some swastikas in the room and use some words you don't like. The other guy will be up crying and irritating you all night. But the Christianity I've been discussing here is not Christianity in the intimate sense of faith that I'll discuss when I do briefly discuss Kierkegaard, another critic of modern times. But that Christianity that has become a public religion, about which I guess the briefest Nietzschean critique would be that it's hokum as a public. It is important to politics. Harry Truman, I think, is quoted as saying that in our system, to run for political office, you have to pour God and Jesus over everything like ketchup over your food. Just got covered up. Now, Carter was a different story. Someone said I had to say something about Jimmy Carter. In any course on ethics, you've got to talk about Jimmy Carter. And all I can say about Jimmy is he's a good Christian, but he did admit that he lusted in his heart after other women. If he had had courage enough, he would have been Ted Kennedy. And if Ted Kennedy had had the courage of Nietzsche, he would have said, "Yeah, I did it, and I liked it, and you would have too, if you'd have been there." Which is probably true. Don't you see? I'm not really trying to be cynical here. It's probably right. Nietzsche isn't trying to be just cynical to irritate you folks. I mean, that's probably right. Yes, if you're rich, good-looking, and lots of people, yeah, sure, why not? So there's like a distinction there. There's sort of Kennedy, Carter, and way down at the end of the spectrum is Richard Nixon. Is it almost question time? I really don't know what other nasty things to say about folks.